Here's Stephen Silas at his post-game press conference last night after a 140-120 loss to the Sacramento Kings.
They're not giving the effort on the defensive end. They're not getting after it like they're supposed to. They're not getting into their man and fighting over and helping each other. They're not doing what they're supposed to do.
Fire and brimstone. For a second, I liked it. Silas continued to criticize the effort of this basketball team, which clearly last night was not doing anything close to enough.
The effort.
Just to close hard or just even throughout the possession?
It was getting into the body, getting over the screen, being in help, sprinting the closeouts, doing what we're supposed to do, acting as if it doesn't matter. It matters. It matters. Disappointing. These are the lessons we have to learn, I guess, and all that stuff, but that's not right. What we did tonight on that floor was not right. It's not right.
He's saying all the right things. That's what you want to hear from your coach after a loss. But here's the problem. It's taken us until February, right before the trade deadline, not too far away from the All-Star break, for that to come out from the coach. And it is just consistent with who the Rockets have been over the last couple of years, which is an organization that lets its players do whatever they want. And if it was James Harden, you know what? I can't stand the guy, but at least I get it. The guy's won an MVP. When it's Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr., guys who have proven bleep in this league, who gives a bleep how talented they are? It doesn't matter. You need to be getting more out of them. What is your job, Stephen Silas? You are a teacher. And it takes until now for the gloves to come off? I feel like this change in approach publicly is a sign he's lost control. Why else would you do this? Why else would you bang on the table at this point in the year? You feel like you are not getting to them. So now you were talking to them through the media. Does that work? Does that help? It doesn't. It simply doesn't. And here we are. And I know this is a bad basketball team, and I'm sure a lot of you are like, who bleeping cares? I do. Because this, when you see this publicly, when you see a coach start to change who he is, he's done. We just saw it with Lovie Smith. Did we not? Remember when Lovie Smith was standing behind Davis Mills until all of a sudden he didn't? Right then, I was out. I'm out here. And I already was out on Stephen Silas. I brought it up a couple of times. But you change your tone like this, you've lost me. Because where the bleep was this weeks ago, months ago? This should have been here for a while. This is a young team. There is some talent here, I think. But it's clearly not being maximized by this guy. And you need to have somebody that actually can do it. He can't. He just can't. To me, it's that simple. At this point, what have you seen to make you believe that he's ever going to get anybody out of it? So you're wasting your time now. I know some people want him to keep coaching up their string so that this team could potentially have a lottery pick or something like that. Why? Why? Because they're not getting better along the way. It is a waste of time. You were essentially saying if you want him to continue to coach the rest of the year, that the remainder of this season is a waste of time. It's not. These players can still improve in some way, shape, or form. And I don't care about this lottery pick stuff that some of you losers out there do. Oh, I want to get the number one overall pick. I want to get Victor Wembanyama. Look, it's a lottery. This isn't like the NFL either. I can understand some criticism for the Lovie Smith and the Houston Texans winning that last game because it did get him out of that number one overall pick. I still think it's loser talk, but in this situation too, like, oh, so you want to have one of the 3 worst records in the NBA? You're fine. You're going to get it. You are not going to need any help. Stephen Silas does not need to continue to pour gasoline on this to get you to the point where you're going to be able to draft Victor Wembanyama. He doesn't need to do any more. I'm out, Sean, and I don't know how you've been feeling. You know way more about basketball than I do, but I am completely done after that. And I get it. You know, fire and brimstone, I generally like it. But fire and brimstone here, it's so out of place for Stephen Silas, and it's, to me, a sign of desperation.
Yeah, it's absolutely desperation. I saw Kelly Iko tweet out something that they've given up. I think it almost 300 points in the last two games. It's what 150 and then 139. So it's understandable that this would be the boiling point, but I do think that drawing the comparison to Lovie Smith, where around week 10 or 11, you kind of heard the that pivot in attitude and like just the press conference demeanor from Lovie Smith. And Lovie Smith and Steven Silas were both very similar in that at the start of the year until today, they're both very even keel. Every time they kind of took the like long view of like, listen, we're gonna figure this out. We're da 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 da. And then like Lovie Smith hit a point where he's like snapping at reporters, and now Steven Silas, he's not snapping at reporters, but like you said, he's talking to his team through the media, which unless you're Phil Jackson, just does not work.
He does not have the pelts on the wall to do that,
No.
just like these players don't have the pelts on the wall to not put in effort on the defensive end. And that disgusts me. And look, I'm old school when it comes to basketball. I'd much rather watch a game where teams are beating the hell out of each other and playing good defense than one of these all-star game kind of games like you saw last night, 140 to 120. Disgusting. It's disgusting. And I get it. It's Steven Silas. It's the last place team in the NBA. And maybe it's a moot point because it's been such a long time. But at a certain point, you're wasting your time. And you're wasting your time with Steven Silas right now. Thomas is in the Heights, leading off on the most interactive sports talk show in Houston. Thomas, what's up?
Hey, man, I can't agree with you more. I liked your analogy to Lovie Smith situation, but I've been off this train pretty early on. I don't check into the Rockets until Christmas Day, and I happened to catch a couple of games during that little win streak we had in November, December, and so at that point, fortunately, I got my hopes up, but like, there's no signs of any of that fight that we saw from that whatever that team was those 2 weeks. There's none of that, and if you have a young team, you think the issues are going to be, they just aren't consistently good every night, but that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing guys that, for whatever reason, we don't have an offense that runs through Sagoon. For whatever reason, guys take plays off, and especially with the youth talent, we should be seeing guys that want to play these vets that they've looked up to for years and show them up and show that they are a team to become in the future. So I'm out on Silas. I feel sorry for the guy. No reason to fire him because it's an easy explanation for the tank job. Mm-hmm. But at this point, I mean, you need a new coach that changes the entire culture and really lights their butts on fire. Like, hey guys, y'all aren't going to be in the league, or y'all not going to be the stars that y'all were projected to be if y'all keep playing like this. So I think two vets and a coach that can change the entire culture might do it. But even with that, I'm starting to, I hate to, kind of flame out on these guys, but that doesn't even seem like doable at this point.
I'm with you, Thomas. Everything you said there, like, great call. Every single point. And I also feel bad for Steven Silas because he does seem like he's a good dude. But that doesn't get the most out of your players. And honestly, I go back in time to last year when Kevin Porter Jr. and Christian Wood had their issues with this team, and the Rockets were sort of like, not that big of a deal. I do want to know what John Lucas could potentially provide the rest of the year. Like, why not?
Yeah, he has a good background as an assistant coach, getting a lot out of guys like when he works with them personally. So having him as the team, and in the like limited times that we have seen John Lucas as like the interim coach, where Silas either has COVID or after his dad died, the Rockets play very well.
They do.
It's 2 games here, 1 game there, so it's not a large sample size of like, the differences between those two, but there is something too that when he's sitting in the top chair and you have someone in that head chair that is holding guys accountable, they play better.
They do.
It's amazing.
It's really that simple. And Thomas brought it up. There were a couple of games this year where you saw what this team theoretically could be, and I don't think they're going to be that consistently because they are young. But that game against the 76ers where James Harden sucked, and it was awesome, and that game against the Suns, those are 2 games that I think back at, and I'm like, you saw something there, but the last couple of months have been a disaster, and they need somebody else, I think, at the absolute top of the food chain here. But my question for you, should he be able to coach the rest of the year, Steven Silas?